Hello, thank you for your interest in the Lake County 2050 project. This presentation is part of a series of community workshops introducing this project to the community and also getting input on the local area plan updates. So for more information about the project, you can visit our website, lakecounty2050.org. And if you have any questions about the project, feel free to email us at lakecounty2050@lakecountyca.gov. So to start, this slide presents a broad overview of this project that we're calling Lake County 2050. It includes a comprehensive update to the county's general plan, including all 8 of the local area plans. It also includes environmental review of these updates, which is required by state law through preparation of a document called the Environmental Impact Report. And finally, it includes concurrent preparation of a climate adaptation plan, which will provide a countywide framework to adapt to climate change. So first, what is a general plan? A general plan is a long-term plan. In this case, we're looking out to the year 2050, and it guides the county's decisions on a pretty broad variety of topics for the unincorporated parts of the county. It's often referred to as a constitution that guides the land use and development in a jurisdiction. And it's called a constitution because it provides this overarching framework for all of the more detailed regulations and guidelines and other plans that affect how development can happen in the community. So typically a general plan will first lay out a community identified vision for the future, and then it presents goals, policies, and actions that will support the jurisdiction in achieving that vision. An important aspect of the general plan is that it provides consistent direction so that everybody in the community has some certainty about what will happen in the future of that community. And because the general plan addresses so many different topics, it requires some careful thinking and real community input and direction to balance growth, conservation, and quality of life in a way that supports the community's vision. And finally, another role of the general plan is to document baseline environmental conditions, and that's so everyone has a shared understanding of our starting point for the plan. So there are 8 topics that state law requires the general plan to address. Local agencies aren't limited to just these topics. You can certainly cover other topics to meet the local needs. But currently, your Lake County General Plan covers these state mandated topics as well as some optional topics. So these required topics are shown on the left side of the screen. And again, the current plan covers these with the exception of the topic of environmental justice. This is a new topic that state law recently was changed to cover. So it's not currently addressed in your general plan, but will be as part of the update. And then these optional topics shown on the right are in the current Lake County General Plan. That's the Aggregate Resources Management Plan, Agricultural Resources, Geothermal Resources, Public Facilities and Services, and Water Resources. So again, that's what's in your current plan. So moving on to local area plans. Local area plans are part of the County General Plan. And they cover these topics at a more localized scale rather than countywide, so they can provide some policy and design guidance that's really attuned to the local area. So the existing local area plans cover some of those general plan topics that I just presented, along with other topics that really call for more localized policy guidance. These local area plans carry equal weight to the countywide general plan elements. But the policies, again, in the local area plans are specific to the local area plan area. Some of the local area plans also identify what are called special study areas, and those are focused on individual communities or parts of a community that fall within the larger local area plan. And then the area plans provide some additional policy and design guidance that's really specific to just that special study area. And finally, the local area plans provide some zoning level information that provides more detail about how development can happen in the local area. So as part of this update, we do plan to reorganize the general plan to streamline the content and avoid redundancy. Many of these general plan topics I've been describing are best planned at a more localized scale, and so those will be covered in the local area plans. That includes land use, circulation, open space conservation and recreation, public facilities and services, and economic development. And these local area plans will also cover those special study areas I just described, again, providing more detailed policy and design guidance. We're planning to have up to 4 special study areas covered by each local area plan. And then the remaining topics we plan to address at the countywide scale that includes health and safety, noise, geothermal, agricultural resources, water resources, housing, and the aggregate resources management plan. One thing I want to point out here is that even though the housing element is part of the general plan, it does need to be updated on a more frequent schedule than the rest of the general plan. So that housing element will be updated separately from the rest of the topics. And similarly, the aggregate resources management plan is currently an appendix to the general plan, and that will also be updated separately from the rest of the general plan. So one of the topics that receives the most attention in a general plan update is land use, and that is in part because of this map that you can see here on the slide. This is required to be included in the general plan. It's called the General Plan Land Use Map. This map identifies what type of land use can be developed on each parcel of land in the unincorporated county, and then it provides some basic parameters for how densely or intensely that land use can be developed. And this map provides the framework for the more detailed zoning map that many of you may be more familiar with, that regulates land use and development at a more fine-grained scale. So the set of general plan land use designations you see here on this slide are typically brought into the zoning code at a higher number of zoning districts. So I want to spend a few minutes talking about the environmental justice element. This is an entirely new topic that state law now requires general plans to address. This is based on a state law that was passed in 2016, so it's not in your current general plan. First, what do we mean by environmental justice? There's really not a single correct definition of environmental justice. It is defined in state law. You can see the definition from state law here on the slide. Others may have different definitions. I think for many of us, a simple way of thinking about it is the basic right of everyone to live, work, go to school, play, and worship in a healthy and clean environment. But what this law recognizes is that low-income communities, communities of color, and tribal communities have experienced a combination of factors. And the result is that today they're often struggling with disproportionate burdens of pollution and health impacts, as well as social and economic disadvantages like poverty and housing instability. So communities in California who are facing those combinations of challenges are called disadvantaged communities under state law. And the focus of the general plan environmental justice element is to improve conditions in those communities. So to comply with these new legislative requirements, for any disadvantaged communities identified in the county, we need to establish policy guidance that speaks to this specific set of issues as they're applicable in the community, plus others that might be identified by community members. But at a minimum, we need to consider policy guidance that addresses pollution exposure, access to effective public facilities, access to food that's affordable and nutritionally adequate, access to safe and sanitary housing, and access to opportunities for physical activity. And as we think about making these changes, we know it can't be a top-down process. We need to emphasize equity in policy making, and we need to involve affected communities in the decisions that affect their lives. And we also need to make choices that prioritize improvements in these communities that have historically faced the greatest impacts. So many of you may not have really interacted with the general plan much in the past, but it does have some real effects on the day-to-day lives of people in Lake County. So I want to take a moment to just talk a little bit about why this matters and why it's important for you to participate in the process. So as I mentioned on the slide about the general plan land use map, the general plan says what kinds of land uses can be developed and where. So that affects how you and your neighbors can develop and use your property. It also affects where job generating uses and commercial uses and services can be developed, which can affect how easy it is for you to find a job that's close to your home, or how easy it is for you to reach a grocery store or meet your other shopping needs from your home. And it also affects how neighborhoods are developed in the first place, which can affect the look and feel of your neighborhood. The general plan also provides policy guidance on how roadways are designed and improved, whether there are parks nearby and how they're maintained, how to reduce and mitigate risks to you and your property from natural hazards, and how cultural and natural resources are conserved in the county. So again, these are just some examples of how the general plan can affect daily life in the county and the local area plan areas. But there's a pretty broad variety of topics that are covered. So this is just a couple examples of why it matters. So we are required under state law to disclose the potential impacts on the physical environment that could result from adopting and implementing the general plan. And we'll do that in a document called the Environmental Impact Report, or EIR. So the EIR will disclose those potential impacts and then identify mitigation measures and project alternatives to address those impacts. There are opportunities for public input in this environmental review process that includes a scoping period to tell us what we should be evaluating in the EIR, and then a comment period after we publish the draft EIR where people can comment on the analysis. So on this slide, you can see a pretty broad overview of this project. We are planning on a 3-year process and having it, so it would last through fall of 2026. We did kick off this project last fall. Since then, we were working on background research and getting set up for community engagement. Our work on the countywide elements is also underway and is moving relatively quickly. We're anticipating draft countywide elements in fall of this year. The workshops in this round of local area plan meetings are part of our initiation to the local area plan updates. And so based on what we learned from community members at this round of workshops, we'll be identifying key issues for each local area plan update and then working on policy and land use options to address those key issues. And that work will happen through this fall. And then the work to prepare the full drafts of the local area plans will continue through spring of 2025, which point we'll begin in earnest the EIR evaluation, which will take us through spring of 2026 for publication of the draft environmental impact report. And then we anticipate public review and adoption concluding in fall of 2026. So participation from the community is really critical to the success of this planning effort, and I encourage you to continue to participate in the process and also to help spread the word to your friends and family. There will be ongoing opportunities to participate. There will be 2 more rounds of these community workshops that are focused on the local area plans. So that includes this coming fall, we'll be discussing those policy and land use alternatives I mentioned. And then in spring of next year, we plan to hold another series of workshops to present the draft local area plans. And then outside of these workshops, there will be stakeholder focus group meetings on specific topics. There's also a general plan advisory committee, or GPAC, that's been formed to help guide the overall process. There's also, the county's in the process right now of forming local area plan advisory committees that will be focused on overseeing each individual local area plan update. And then there's going to be periodic check-ins with the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors. So you're welcome to attend all of those meetings and provide comments. You can also check out our project website, lakecounty2050.org, and learn more about current and ongoing opportunities to participate. Thank you again for your interest in this project, and we look forward to hearing from you throughout the process.